So thank you all for coming along. We had about 50 people sign up, actually more than that, I think, but usually not everybody comes. So this is, we have an open evening from time to time to tell people more about what we're doing here and what we're offering. And Charlene suggested that this time I talk about personalized medicine, because this term is beginning to be used, and it would be really good to, so I think that's probably a good idea because a lot of people signed up. We'll have to wait and see how many come. So I'm going to give, mostly talk about what personalized medicine is, and then give you an idea of how we're teaching people how to use personalized medicine for themselves through a variety of classes here. I find it quite kind of amusing in one sense that personalized medicine is just in the last few years beginning to be used quite widely. In June, I went to quite a big conference in London run by the College of Medicine on integrated and personalized medicine. And I thought, great. There were about nearly 3,000 delegates, mostly doctors, some nurses, other medics, and a few complementary therapists. And because Western medicine has been using standardized medicine, if you have a problem, or if you have 100 people with the same problem, they all get the same medicine. So it's been very unpersonalized. And Western medicine is just beginning to realize that everyone's different and genetically, and their health is different, and therefore they may need different medicine. And actually, macrobiotics which is has come from Oriental medicine. Oriental medicine has always been personalized medicine for at least several thousand years. And so the whole approach in macrobiotics has always been to use personalized medicine, for ourselves and also for other people. I do get frustrated, I have to admit, sometimes. There's such a wealth of information in macrobiotics and Oriental medicine and other traditional medicines, and Western medicine is so, for all its great benefits, it's also very blinkered. It doesn't look outside of its little box and way of investigating the world to realize that actually there's an awful lot of amazing knowledge out there, which it could be using and be benefiting from. So I'm going to give a quick introduction to macrobiotics. Maybe a bit of a funny word. It was adopted by a Japanese man called George Osawa, who studied Oriental medicine. At the beginning of the 20th century, he developed tuberculosis. His mother and a brother had died of tuberculosis. Tuberculosis had started going around Japan at that time. And he was getting seriously ill, and he looked at some traditional Japanese approaches to healing, eating a balanced plant-based diet, no refined foods, no sugar, and he healed himself of tuberculosis. And he then spent the rest of his life teaching about health, how we can be healthy, about the power of food as medicine, and also about personal development and developing our consciousness. He came to Europe in the 1920s and then again in the 1950s, late 40s and 50s, with the aim of bringing the kind of traditional wisdom from the East to Western countries. He was appalled at how little people in Western countries understood about health, even though medicine was becoming advanced. So he was very motivated to teach the Oriental approach, understanding of health and life, which is just as complex and evolved as Western medicine is. So now we have a lot of different teachings from the East. We have Chinese medicine, we have yoga, acupuncture, Chinese herbs, Chuina, shiatsu, lots of different Oriental approaches. But in this time, he was one of the first. And this is exactly what we need. We need traditional Eastern understanding and Western understanding, yin and yang. If we have both aspects, more energetic, sometimes spiritual medicine, plus very Western, very physical medicine, that's going to be most effective. Some of the basic ideas of macrobiotics are that most illness is caused by our daily food, way of life, lack of exercise, overwork, lack of support, lack of community, etc. And on the other hand, that our food and lifestyle are very powerful healers if we become ill. They're also very powerful at preventing illness, and they're also very powerful at promoting health, giving us the maximum amount of energy, emotional balance, mental clarity, and spiritual connection. And so a part of macrobiotics has always been, let's be self-reliant as much as we're able to. Let's learn to help ourselves rather than being highly reliant on other people to tell us what to do about our health, or if we become ill, what we're going to do about it. So I've always really liked that. It's very empowering. Through learning about macrobiotics and the macrobiotic approach to life and health, it's giving us lots of tools to help ourselves, keep ourselves well, deal with illness if it comes up. The kind of diet that it's or way of eating that it promotes kind of comes out of, in some ways, traditional Japanese eating, which traditionally in Japan, they didn't eat red meat, they didn't eat dairy foods. It was plant-based, a lot of rice, barley, millet, grains, a lot of vegetables, beans, tofu, tempeh, and fish, and seafood, and sea vegetables, which are a very useful food because they're very high in minerals. So in general, that's what is recommended within macrobiotics. Interesting that now, this is what the Western world is catching up with, and I just suddenly wish that I brought along a diagram of the Eat Well guide, which the NHS, if you look on the NHS website, they have an Eat Well guide, and they have an imaginary plate to kind of show the proportions of different foods which they advise eating. 1/3 grains and complex carbohydrates, 1/3 vegetables and fruit, and then a higher protein section, which says eat less meat and definitely less processed meats, and more beans and vegetable protein, and also fish. Then the fourth section, for decades, has said dairy. We need dairy for health. Western medicine is now admitting that dairy is not necessary for health. Okay, it has calcium in, but many other foods are high in calcium as well. So now it says dairy foods or alternatives, things like plant milks. And then there's a very narrow section for oils, for plant oils. So the NHS, plus the World Health Organization and many other scientific organizations, Heart Foundation, are now recommending a plant-based diet, or sometimes called a Mediterranean diet, because traditionally in Greece, Italy, Portugal, etc., this is what people ate: grains, beans, vegetables, sometimes sea vegetables, fruits, seeds, nuts, and a little bit of animal food, very often fish or seafood. So there's a real consensus now that this is the healthiest way. Big emphasis in macrobiotics on eating whole foods rather than processed foods. I was really shocked a couple of weeks ago to read that on average in the UK, People get 50% of their calories, their energy, from ultra-processed foods. That is foods which are highly processed, with a lot of sugar, trans fats, unhealthy fats, highly refined flour, etc., etc. 50% is coming from these really artificial foods which we've never eaten before the last 30, 40 years, and really are the cause of all health problems. So great to eat what we've been eating for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, whole foods. I've always been interested in archaeology, and there's a recent discovery that our distant ancestors, well, let me ask you a question. How long ago do you think we started cooking food? 10,000 years, 50,000 years, 100,000 years? Actually, our predecessor, Homo habilis, was cooking food about 470,000 years ago. Isn't that just amazing? So this is like a big, shock within archaeology circles. They found remains, proof that people were cooking food 470,000 years ago. So we need to eat whole foods, and good to eat foods from a similar climate mostly, and also seasonal foods. Some of the kind of basic principles of macrobiotics. And really, the purpose of the school, what we're teaching here, we're our best to provide education for people to learn how to look after their health, not just their physical health, also emotionally, you could say spiritually. To be in good health, I think we need to have some kind of spiritual connection, whatever form that takes. This is what we're willing to offer. We're willing to empower people to be able to take better care of their overall well-being and health. So what I described so far is kind of generally what is healthy, in terms of food, obviously in terms of exercise. We need activity, but not overworking. We need sociability. We need social support. There's a lot of things that contribute to health. So we can make those kind of generalizations. So that isn't personalized. So if we eat basically a seasonal plant-based diet, we're going to be much healthier than average. However, over time, we will have habits that will gradually sabotage our health. It may take 10 years, it may take 20 years, it may take 30, 40, 50 years. So, for example, eating quite a lot of animal fats. Okay, now I see a lot of clients, and sometimes people say, well, I've been eating really healthily for the last 30 years, and I've been eating vegetarian. Oh yeah, but I do like cheese. It's like I have some cheese, every week, and it's that's my kind of, that's the thing I really like. And cheese, unfortunately, is pretty fatty, and for most of us, we're not we won't be using up all of that fat, so it does slowly accumulate in the body. Or maybe we have some kind of lifestyle habit. Maybe we're not taking enough exercise, or we overwork, or we're not good at doing things which nourish us. We take care of everybody else all the time. All these things create imbalances in the body that sooner or later can start causing symptoms and illness. So great if everybody in the UK, for example, was eating a macrobiotic diet, or even the NHS Eat Well plate, the health of the nation would improve enormously. Type 2 diabetes, for example, I've forgotten what we're up to now. 3.7 million people have it diagnosed, and probably another 1.4 undiagnosed. It's epidemic proportions, much higher than 30, 40, 50 years ago, because of ultra processed foods, primarily. I've met hundreds and hundreds of people within practicing macrobiotics. Not one has developed type 2 diabetes. This is an easy problem to prevent. most people, the commonest cause of death is still heart disease. Easy problem to prevent. So just by following those generalized recommendations, we're going to do well. But why don't we go a step further and practice personalized medicine? This is where we really understand what we personally need, because we're all different. We all have different bodies, different lifestyles, live in different conditions. Our health has changed in particular ways. So actually, we all need to be doing different things, eating slightly different foods. Some people need to be exercising more. Some people may need to be exercising less. Or the whole Oriental approach is that we need balance in our lives. So it's, I love personalized medicine because, macrobiotics, which is kind of like a newer 20th century version of Oriental medicine, which is at least 3,000 or 4,000 years old, really has a good understanding of health. And so it's like you've got the tools to understand what's happening in your body and how to keep yourself well. And if you become ill, hopefully not seriously, then you can figure out, okay, well, what do I need to change in order to get back to wellness again? And we need three things if we want to practice personalized medicine. The first thing is we need ways of assessing our health. We need to know what's going on inside of us, physically, energetically, because that's what Oriental medicine and macrobiotics focuses on a lot. Emotionally, we need to know what's going on inside. So we need to have some methods of health assessment, sometimes called Oriental diagnosis. And in macrobiotics, we use a lot of different methods of traditional Oriental diagnosis, and also some that I think have been developed within Oriental diagnosis. And what the Oriental people have been very good at for thousands of years is making very close observations about changes in people and then correlating them with what's going on in the body. And there are visual methods of health assessment. So, for example, we all have our native skin color, our natural skin color from our parents and heritage. But over our lifetime, our skin color can change. It can become paler, darker, redder, more yellow, even more green, or brownish. And this is all reflecting changes going on inside the body. And so in Oriental medicine, they've worked it out. And more of a, if it becomes darker, especially around the eyes, this is showing us that there's an imbalance in the kidneys and the kidney energy. If we become greener, or like an olive yellow, the liver's getting blocked. If we become very, very pale, then it's either something happening with our circulation in the heart or possibly with our lungs, which are very connected with circulation. Then we look at different areas of the face. We study everything in terms of yin and yang, these two pairs of opposites. We have a body and we have a head with 4 limbs coming off. So the head and the body are very connected. Whatever's going on in the head is going on in the body. Whatever's going on in the body is going on in the head. So there are different regions of the face where we can check out what's happening in the body. We can look at the lungs here, the heart here, stomach and pancreas here, our liver here, kidneys around here, our intestines around the lips, our reproductive organs here. And by looking at changes in these different areas, if we're developing spots and eruptions, then that's probably the body discharging because there's an excess of maybe animal fats, sugars, etc. in the corresponding organ. Areas may become very thickened. If the skin becomes very thick, then that can indicate that there's a lot of animal fats are being laid down in the corresponding part of the body. Changes in color, lines, etc., all revealing different things about the health. And from using this over decades, it really does work. It's not diagnosing in a Western science way. Oh, you've got high blood pressure. You've got this infection, and so on. It's just telling us more about the condition of the organs. And when the condition of the organs is out, then we're more susceptible to certain problems. So, for example, if someone has a pale face with a lot of pinkness across between their eyebrows and nose and across the cheeks, it's telling us that they're eating a lot of expansive foods, like sugary foods, and this is weakening their lungs, and they're very likely to then develop things like hay fever, and also allergies to other things in the air, and may well have a weakened immune system as well, because the lungs and the mucous membrane are our first line of defense. Then there's really lots of methods. They're all kind of a bit rough. So we use a lot of different methods, which we teach on our courses, because we want to empower people with this. So we can look at the whites of the eyes, which tell us about different parts of the body. We can look at the tongue, we can look at the hands, we can look at the feet, we can look at people's posture. Also, people's voice changes, becomes quieter, it becomes very loud, it can become very flat, it can become very groany. These different voices are all telling us about what's happening inside the body. What kind of emotions people are feeling is telling us what's happening inside the body, and we can relate that to different organs. We can also touch the body. Acupuncturists use the pulses. In macrobiotics, we tend to feel the meridian system over the body, feel the abdominal organs, feel the back areas which relate to different organs, feel the hands, the texture of the hands, and so on. So visual, touch, and listening, and then also questioning people. How do you feel? You're sweating a lot at night. Okay, well, that's significant information. Your energy drops in the afternoon. You got a headache. Well, which part of your head is that in? Is it behind the eyes? In Oriental medicine, that relates more to the liver, because in macrobiotics we study the acupuncture or the shiatsu meridians, which are very, very useful in understanding our health and also give us another way of helping ourselves. So headaches behind the eyes, okay, then the liver's involved. So this is holistic medicine, which I'm excited to say that at this conference in London with a lot of doctors, they're beginning to see that if our microbiome, if our gut is not working well, then that affects our immune system, it dulls our thinking, we can get brain fog, and many other problems. So they're beginning to think holistically. If you have a problem in one place, like headaches behind the eyes, that's not an eye problem or a head problem. Actually, it probably starts somewhere else. Headaches behind the eyes start with the liver. Headaches more here with the gallbladder. Headaches more here along the bladder meridian. Something's happening with the bladder. So these are some of the ways that we really understand what the cause of different health problems. So really interesting to study health assessment. This is how we get to know ourselves. Sometimes it's a bit sobering. We kind of see what we've been doing to ourselves. But the great thing is we can always improve our health. Then the second thing we need is a way of understanding how food, lifestyle, emotions, etc. affect us. So you could say this is some kind of medical theory. In macrobiotics, of course, Western medicine can be useful, from blood tests and ultrasounds and scans and things like that. But we're mostly using Oriental medicine, and in Oriental philosophy and medicine, we're using yin and yang, which is just understanding balance, balance between hot and cold, acid and alkaline, sodium and potassium, contraction and expansion. We breathe in, we breathe out, our heart relaxes, our heart contracts, so do our intestines. We can understand things in terms of yin and yang, and also 5-element theory, which is looking at 5 different organ pairs. So that's the second thing we need. And then the third thing we need is to know how to make changes in our life to change the condition in the body. So you could say, well, we could call this different things. I'm going to call it home medicine. So these are the 3 things we need really for personalized medicine. So this is what we study a lot in macrobiotics. We treat food as medicine, just like Hippocrates did. He's who started one of the founders of Western medicine 2,500 years ago. Doctors still take the Hippocratic Oath. Hippocrates also said, food is your medicine and medicine is your food. A very famous quote. So the ancients knew that food was very powerful healer, and fasting is a powerful healer of many problems, which means just eating very simply, drinking water and just very simple liquids, and so on. So we really look at how we can change our food, different dishes, different foods, different tastes, different flavors, different cooking styles to help different health problems. If we're getting a lot of headaches behind the eyes, and then there's going to be a lot of tension in the liver. How do we help the liver? If we can help the liver to relax by cutting down on foods which block the liver, especially a lot of heavy animal foods, eggs, meat, cheese. What the liver likes is more lighter foods, a lot of vegetables, sour foods, fermented foods, maybe some vegetable juices, as well as grains and beans and so on, which are not so heavy. We change the condition of our liver through our food, and maybe through some stretching, through some exercises, through looking at our life. Something else which can tighten up the liver is overwork. When we push every day, we get more tense, and this can especially affect the liver, for example. So this is the third thing that we need is home medicine. With these 3 things, it's actually very powerful. I may want to use Western medicine in a big way in the future, but I'm not against Western medicine. But in the last 40 plus years, I've been to a doctor twice for very minor things, and I've been to a local hospital for to see a nurse for about 10 or 15 minutes. Things like running into a wall, playing squash, and needing a cup glued up. I was very impressed they glued it rather than sewed it. I was dreading having the needles put through, and they glued it. And that's all so far I've been able. I needed to use Western medicine because this is powerful. Learning these 3 things. It needs study. It takes time to learn these things, and it takes experimenting as well. How do I feel when I stop eating cheese? How do I feel when I eat beans? Maybe you get very windy because if the gut's not used to digesting beans, it takes a while. How do I feel eating whole grains? What does fruit do to me? What does drinking beer do to me? What does coffee do to me? We need to experiment because we're all different. Some people find drinking a little coffee every day. Other people, it wipes them out and is one of the worst things they can do for their health. I find it so strange still. There's so much information coming out now, and a lot of it is very contradictory. And so people are very confused. And this is where personalized medicine can be very, very useful, to know what is good for me, or my family, or people I'm cooking for. So science tries to say, well, is coffee good or bad? Well, it has some good effects. It's got antioxidants and but also it's got caffeine in, which can be bad. Can be good for counteracting. People that have coffee have slightly less heart disease. And then you end up thinking, well, should I drink coffee or not? With personalized medicine, we can see that some people, if they have robust health, lots of heat in the body, lots of energy in the body, if they have a coffee, sometimes it's going to have very little effect. Other people, especially if they become very depleted, I see a lot of people with chronic fatigue, also increasingly now with long COVID, people are very depleted. Then one coffee can wipe them out for several hours or even half a day. A lot of people find that out for themselves with chronic fatigue. One coffee, one glass of alcohol can just wipe them out for hours or longer. So it takes time to study, and I think this is why there's the kind of simple approaches. There's a big attraction. Eating plant-based, that's great. Eating whole grains and vegetables and beans, that's great. A lot of people are attracted to, well, let's just eat alkalizing foods, or let's just eat raw foods, or let's not eat any carbohydrates at all, then I can eat as much animal food as I like. And or I'm just going to eat vegan, which sometimes is for ethical reasons as well as health reasons, or sometimes it's mostly ethical reasons and actually isn't necessarily that healthy. And these kind of single idea diets, they're easy to grasp and do, but they're going to be very limited. They're going to help some people and a lot, going to help some people a little. Some people, they have more of a neutral effect. Some people, they will make iller and worse because it's not personalized. So there's no one diet that fits all. At this, I'm just going to pause for a minute and ask you if you have any questions. So I hope this has given you a kind of good introduction to personalized medicine. I'm just going to say one other thing, actually. In some ways, there's a real kind of fun element and empowering element to practicing personalized medicine, which takes us out of feeling a victim. It gives us the responsibility of looking after our health. When we don't know what causes our health problems, then it feels like we're a victim. What this understanding does, if we really want to study it and practice it and learn from it and experiment, is it gives us a lot of power and control over our health. And we're always going to slip up sometimes, but it really takes us out of that kind of feeling a victim, and even a playful quality. I got this, I got my headache again. Okay, what am I doing? Can I figure out what it is that I'm doing? I think my food's okay, but I ate something very salty, and I've been really stressed recently and really pushing it too hard. Yeah, I've built up too much tension in my liver. So what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to eat some foods. I'm going to have a hot bath to relax me. I'm going to cancel most of my work tomorrow. I'm going to chill out, go for a walk, have a rest, really nourish myself. Just eat very, very lightly. Eat a lot of sour foods and pickles to help my liver. And let's get out of it. So it's really empowering and also kind of playful in a way. So any questions? I'm going to give a few minutes for any questions you have. Yes, Shakti. You have to unmute. Yep, just need to unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm curious about how you would go about planning a macrobiotics medicinal dinner party for fun.
Yeah, well, you could say there's different styles of macrobody eating. There's kind of daily eating, where we're promoting our health every day. It's a bit simpler. There's a more kind of healing eating, where we may cut out certain foods and cooking styles and really focus on other foods and maybe some more medicinal foods, because we want to get a fast improvement in our health. And then there's also a third way is more party eating, where we go a bit wider. We maybe a bit sweeter, a bit saltier, richer, more oily. So if we're having a dinner party or entertaining people, we might go that way. We might go a bit broader. If we eat that broader way all the time, then we're probably going to, our health will go down. But occasionally we can do that. We just go broader and have more fun food. Have a bit of alcohol if you enjoy alcohol, etc.
Okay, so you wouldn't a quick diagnosis of each panel's or each party's preference or health, and I'm just curious.
Well, not generally.
No.
I mean, you could do. You could produce a range of foods, and then just choose different foods or different proportions of foods for different people. If you really wanted to help their health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could do that.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? No.
Oliver, sorry, I was just going to say, are you going to go on to, you talked about stretching exercises for the liver. Are you going to go on to talk a bit more about with the medicine and kind of how the exercise fits in with the eating pattern?
Yeah, I could do. I'll just say a little bit. We're a bit limited on time, but I'll just kind of excuse my simple. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe I have to go back to black one. Excuse my simple diagrams. So if we feel that there's an imbalance in the body, or maybe we're getting a health problem because of an imbalance, so maybe we'll talk about the stomach. Maybe we're getting some acid reflux coming up, or a lot of bloating in this middle part of in the upper abdomen. Very often this happens because we're holding a lot of tension in this part of the body, particularly in the bottom of the stomach, the beginning of the duodenum. There's a sphincter muscle here. And then our food, when we develop a lot of tension in this place, then food doesn't go down easily, and then often it comes up. So the first thing we do is we identify what the imbalance is. And then we look for the causes of this. Is this more because of food? Is it more lifestyle? Is it holding a lot of emotions, a lot of emotional tension in the body there? Is it because the person can never relax? They're always on alert, or whatever. And it can be different things in different people. And then we see, okay, well, how can we change it? And we can use our food. With this tightness in the stomach, then some self-massage in the abdomen could be really good to help relax it. Then the stomach meridian comes down the front of the torso and down the front of the legs. So we could also do some stretching exercises for the front of the body. Even just this is helping, open up this area and relieve some of the tension. So we put together, like a variety of different ways of changing that imbalance or condition in the body. I think that's about all I have time to say here, really. We use the meridian system. If we want to help the lungs, then we're going to, the lung meridian's here, so you may use stretching or pressure points along here to really help a lung problem. for example. Is that enough just to give you a bit more insight?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah, it was more about kind of how all the kind of different exercises fit in with it. But I know that's a very broad kind of question. As a family that do a lot of exercise, so we do a lot of cycling. My son competes in cycling, so I'd just be interested to see how it kind of fits in with the food.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
Well, that's great, being really active. It is good to do some kind of even short program of stretching exercises, because then you're working on the whole body. It might be half a dozen yoga asanas, or we teach Do-in, and there's like 6 Makaho exercises which stretch all the 12, the 12 meridians. So it is good to do some kind of balanced program, even if it's just like 10 minutes before or after cycling, for example.
Okay.
You're helping the whole body.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I'm just going to tell you a bit more about the courses we run here. We run a lot of cooking courses. I'm just going to change the view again. We run a lot of cooking courses. We have a cooking weekend here, plant-based cooking weekends. The next one's at the end of October. And we also run online cooking courses, which you're going to meet Lara in a few minutes. She's going to teach you some cooking now. So she teaches online cooking courses, how to prepare a whole meal, how to make amazing desserts, etc., soups, and so on. If you really want to learn more about the Oriental diagnosis, and there's kind of 3 different aspects of personalized medicine, we run a 5-day looking after your health course, with the idea of giving you everything you need to look after your health. And that really helps people to really identify what's working well, and also what imbalances there are in the body, and have an explanation for any health problems they might have, and to go away with a plan of how to help rebalance and to help certain health problems. By the way, we're not rigid. We're not saying everybody has to eat this way, you have to do this 100%. We work with everyone to see what is their next step forwards, and the macrobiotic knowledge can really help people knowing what the next step is. Then I run an online course, 6 steps to well-being. Also more Oriental theory, if you enjoy Oriental theory. I'm going to be starting that, I think, later on in October, online. If you really want a lot more, we run a year course, about a 28-day course, spread over 9 months. We do a lot of Do-in exercise, studying all the Oriental medicines, some basic emotional healing, a lot of cooking classes, etc. And if you want to go on to study this in more depth, or to help other people, we run a 2nd-year course where people qualify as a health coach and well-being shiatsu practitioner and whole food chef, and then a 3rd-year course to become a health consultant, able to help people with a really wide range of different physical and sometimes emotional health problems. So we've got a whole range of different courses. I also give personal health consultations if you feel that you need some personal help. And also next month, November, we are going to start a new offering, which is our macrobiotic wellness community. First of all, online, with a variety of offerings every month. And I'm going to hand you over to Charlene, Charlene, are you able to, maybe she's popped out. We didn't plan what time.
I am here.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Would this be a good time for you to just talk about it for 1 or 2 minutes, or maybe,
Yeah.
or at least introduce yourself, and then we can always come back to it at the end.
Yeah, I'll do it now because I don't know how long I'm going to stay on for. So I'll just have a little seat. I'm with my children at the moment, so they might make a little bit of noise. So
Yeah.
apologise if they do. So hi everyone, my name is Charlene. I actually started at the school about 15 years ago, I think it was. I did a course, it's called Looking After Your Health. The signature 5-day course, which I highly recommend. And yeah, I went on to do the first year course, second year course, third year course, and have been using it ever since. And yeah, cannot speak highly enough of the benefits of macrobiotics for one's own kind of personal healing journey, really. And I now kind of teach. I work a lot with women, and I found a way to combine macrobiotics with women's empowerment, which is fun and something that I love. And then the macrobiotic wellness community, we're really excited to launch this and get it out there. And it's really a way of supporting people to come in if you want to kind of dip your toes in the water and find out what macrobiotics is, learn things that are going to help you. We're going to have every month, there's going to be a talk. Oliver is going to do a talk, and we may have guest speakers come in as well. And we're going to have a cooking class, which is pre-recorded. So Oliver's talk will be pre-recorded. The cooking class will be pre-recorded. I'm also going to be running a support circle. So this is where you can come online, and if, you know, you can share your journey, because this way of living and eating is so different to what everybody else is doing. And we need to be surrounded by people who are on the same path to really inspire us and keep us motivated, keep us engaged. So I will be running that, and then Oliver will also do a question and answer session, and that will be live as well. So you'll find that as you go on, depending on where you are on this journey, if you're new to it, if you're kind of, you know, into it, depends where you are really, but different questions come up at different times, and this is going to be really useful for you to come along and get your questions answered. And maybe it's something personal about your health, or maybe you have a question about, you know, you're cooking beans and you do get the gas, and how can you reduce the bloating and things like that. And that will, the circle and Oliver's Q&A will be live, so that's a really good opportunity to come in. With this the gathering, the Zoom online circle that I'll be running, that's a good way of kind of coming in and connecting with other like-minded people as well. So we'll have some kind of group exercises to do where you can get into small groups or pairs and meet other people and connect in the community as well. Yeah, so we're very excited to launch that and put that out there. Yeah, not sure what else to say, Oliver.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining, and also it's just great for everybody to meet you and for you to meet people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is to move on to Lara, who is going to show you how to cook a few things. She is one of our main cooks, and is an amazing cook, and really you need to come here because she just makes amazing food. Everybody just really enjoys her food so much. And she also runs online cooking classes, which you might really enjoy as well. So I'm going to hand you over to Lara, and I'm going to just mute and disappear. And then in about 50 minutes, I'm going to come back just to wrap up and to answer any questions that you have. So I'm going to hand you over to Lara. I think you can. There's nobody else coming, so I think it's okay just to leave you with it.
Yeah, that's all good. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be back in about 40 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Oliver.
All right. Okay, so enjoy the cooking, everybody. Thank you very much, Lara. Thank
you. Thanks, Charlene. Hi, everybody. My name's Lara, as Oliver said, and I'm a cooking teacher, and I'm going to teach you how to make a dessert tonight. It's a seasonal dessert, and often desserts are a little bit overlooked in kind of part of a healthy diet. I see lots of people who think that they don't fit, whereas actually they can be very nourishing, quite healing, and have lots of great properties. So it's a big passion of mine to teach people how to make some wholesome and healthy desserts, mainly because it was something that I really struggled with when I first started changing my diet and wanting to look after my health. I didn't know. I grew up making cakes and biscuits and all sorts of sugary stuff with my mum, and I really loved it. And when I first started, I stopped. And then when I had my children, I realized that I was missing how to make desserts. So I wanted to share one with you tonight. As we go along, if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, you're very welcome as I'm cooking. It doesn't matter if you interrupt or, that's absolutely fine. So do ask any questions. The more the merrier. I'm here to help and give you some inspiration, hopefully. So I don't know if you've all got your recipes or you can see them, but we're going to make a crumble today, which is a traditional English dessert, but there's a slight twist. So we're not going to use any refined sugar or any dairy, but we're going to use the sweetness from fruit and from some syrups that I'll talk about a little bit more as we go along. But we're going to start cooking, otherwise we won't have any crumble to show you at the end. So crumble is one of those things as well that's great at this time of year because you can use all the fruits that are in season. So apples, pears, the last of the berries. So I think my last blackberry crumble was last week. So picking your own, but it can, that's autumnal fruits. But if you wanted to make them more seasonal, as it suggests in your recipe, you can choose other seasonal fruits. So more around late spring, rhubarb is really nice with some pears, or raspberries with some apples or pears is really delicious. So once you have this basic recipe, please feel free to experiment with whichever you'd like. So I'm just going to peel the apples. And that is optional. You could peel or not peel. I quite like to peel. I feel that it gives it a little bit more sweetness. But if you want to keep the skin on and have the fiber and the goodness from the skin, that's absolutely fine as well. In your recipe, it says just apples, but I've got a pear left over, as often happens in the fruit bowl, so I'm going to add that in. And pears are really great to add in because they add a really nice gentle sweetness. Sometimes apples can be a little bit sharp. So I do love adding a pear.
Laura, can I ask, we have a pear tree and I have a glut of pears at the moment. So does it matter how hard or soft they are? What should they be? Is there any type, any point that they're better or worse to use?
They generally tend to be more sweet when they're a little bit softer. Pears are one of those things though that you think you leave to soften and then they suddenly
go rotten. Yeah.
You open them up and they're so annoying. But if they're rock hard, I would wait a little bit. But again, if you really have got them rock hard and want to cook something, that's fine. It's just this initial bit where you're going to cook them. So this one is incredibly soft. So this actually isn't going to need any pre-cooking. So I could just cut that and put it straight into the base of the crumble. But if you've got pears that are straight off the tree and are a little bit hard that you want to use, all you need to do is cut them up, and we're going to cook in some apple juice in a minute. So you're just going to need to cook them until they soften, because if you just put them into the oven hard, they will just not soften enough. They will just bake and they will still be hard. So it's just important that you soften them in a little apple juice first before you put them in. And that goes if you're cooking the pears for anything, really. They just need to cook to become a little soft. And that brings out the sweetness in them as well.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
If you've got a glut and they don't store, then you could cook them in big pieces and then freeze them, and then you could use it throughout the year, or pasteurize them in jars, depending on what you prefer.
Okay, thank you. So if you're going to freeze them, you mean you can freeze them from just as they are, just cut them up?
No, I would cook them first. So in the apple juice.
Right, in the apple juice, okay.
Cook them in the apple juice a little bit, soften them, and then almost cook them, like that. They might turn a little, when you unfreeze them, they may be a little pulpy. So mixing them with another kind of like with apple or something like that, that gives it a little bit more texture, might be a good idea. But it seems a shame to waste them. So I always think that whilst it's great to have fresh, if you have a glut, it is great to be able to use them.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just chopping the apple into pieces. And then we're going to soften that, because that can be good bit. Can be a little tough if you bake it straight away. So it's not, oh dear, it's not a good apple. If you just bake the apple, it can just be a little hard, especially if there's not much liquid in there. So I like to just soften it first a little, especially if I'm using dried apricots. I put them in to soften a little bit first. Although these are nice and kind of quite soft ones, they can be a little bit tough. And if you just bake them, then they just toughen up more. So I'm just going to chop the apricots in half. So hopefully you can see that these are really nice dark apricots, which means that they haven't been preserved with sulfur. So the bright orange ones look very pretty, but not the best. So if you can buy the unsulfured, that's great. Okay, so a little apple juice into the pan. Place your fruit in. And the apricots. And then I'm not going to put the pear in. If the pear was really hard, I would be, but it's really, really soft, so it's not going to need any cooking. I'm just going to pop these in, put a lid on, and then let that soften slightly so that when we come to bake it, it's not just drying out more. Does anyone make crumble already, a traditional crumble? Maybe.
My mum is the crumble queen.
Crumble queen, exactly. So maybe you can try and tempt her. Do you think your family would be up for trying an alternative or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to be honest, this dish as well, I don't know how many are familiar with macrobiotics, but this dessert is one that often works well with people who aren't used to eating in a slightly different way. So often people, although it's, maybe don't call it crumble, call it something else, because it's not a crumble, but like a traditional one. But most people I find who I've made this for, who aren't following a macrobiotic diet or into whole foods, can enjoy this, and it's still, which is great. So they don't notice. There's no, oh, this is a bit new or different or weird. There's none of that. Okay, so let's make the topping, which is where the main difference starts. Oh, the one thing I did want to say about the apples is often apple crumble is made with cooking apples, and often people will have a glut of cooking apples. But cooking apples are a little bit sour. So if you did want to use cooking apples, I would use a little bit of sweetener or rice syrup in with them, and also blend them, or not blend them, but combine them with some pear, because that will also bring some sweetness as well as the dried apricots. So if you do want to use cooking apples, that's how I would recommend getting away from their slightly more sharpness than I tend to use just dessert apples when but I know that my mum has lots, and so it's nice to be able to use them up. Okay, whilst we're waiting for that to soften, let's make the topping, which is, yeah, where the main difference is. So we're going to use a base of porridge oats. If you want to make this gluten-free oats are available now, so that's great. So it's a little bit more like not a cobbler, but like a crumble, a light kind of topping rather than a kind of flat topping that the more traditional one would be.
Do you use the large porridge oats or just any?
I think preferable are the porridge oats, not the jumbo.
Okay.
You can use both, but I think for baking, the porridge just are a little bit smaller and finer, and they don't tend to be quite so chewy when you bake them. So I prefer using the porridge. But again, you can experiment, see what you prefer. And I mean, both are going to work. They just have a different feel. Let's just see how it's ready for that to come up to simmer. So I'm just going to turn that down. I don't need it to really cook, just to soften. Okay, then we need some ground almonds, which adds a nice bit of richness. But that is optional. You could just use flour. And to be honest, today I have only got a little bit of almonds. So I'm going to use part almonds and part. We've got about half a cup, so I'm just going to make up the rest with some spelt wholemeal flour. And you just want to combine all that well. And I'm going to add a little pinch of baking powder. And again, that's optional. I like to put it in because it just gives a little lift to it and makes it a little bit lighter. But if you don't want to use that, that's okay. But just make sure, again, that you sprinkle that in and it's evenly combined. I find this is like a great Sunday purge when everyone's gathered. It feels like a quite family one to have, and you can prepare it in advance, the fruit, the topping, and then put it all together and just pop it in the oven and it's ready while you're eating your main meal. Okay, so now we're going to add the oil and syrups. So I was going to talk a little bit about, I'm not going to talk about the syrups now. We'll talk about them while we're cooking. Otherwise, I will not have enough time to cook it. But I will come back to that. So half a cup of oil. I like to use olive. Lots of people are like, really? Surely that really tastes. But when you bake it, it doesn't. It really loses all the strong flavour, and it doesn't have any taste. Just adds a nice, just the richness that we need to cook it. The other ones you can use sesame, but definitely not toasted because that definitely has a strong flavour. And sunflower oil also has a very overpowering taste in baking. So you can use deodorized sunflower oil, but you must make sure that it doesn't have this strong taste because it's really, actually sunflower oil is quite unpleasant in a dessert recipe. Okay, so then I've just stirred you can almost like breadcrumbs, just make sure that the oil is all stirred through. And then syrup. So I'm making this for my family. So I have teenagers now. So when they were younger, I just used rice syrup. But they have got sweeter tooths as they got older and went to school and eat out and all those kind of things now. So I'm going to use a little bit of maple syrup, and I'll talk about the differences in a minute. So I'm going to use also a little bit of barley malt. Well, if I can get the lid off. So we need half a cup in total. So I'm going to mix these two together. So the barley malt is nice and runny at the moment. If you buy this or have used it and it's not, you just need to stand it in the jar in some hot water, and then it will loosen up, and then you can pour it like this. Okay, so then just going to add these. It's looking a little sticky, so I'm just going to, maybe I've measured the oil. Just going to put a little, if it looks too wet, just put a few oats in, just to make sure. But what you're aiming for is something that looks a little like this, and it's not going to be compact, so it's not like we're going to push it down like you would in a traditional crumble. It just wants to still have that lightness, and we're going to sprinkle it onto the fruit and not press it down. That is ready to go. So let's just see how much fruit we've got. Yeah. We need an oven-proof dish to put your fruit in, so I'm just going to add the pear in. Just check that the apple, so you don't want it falling apart, so there's still like big pieces in there, but if you put a knife in, it's nice and soft, so that means that it's going to not dry out when you bake it. And there's just a little juice in the bottom, so you don't want a huge amount, because then it will all just bubble up and make your crumble topping really wet, which we don't want. So just a little bit on the bottom of the dish. So then we're going to take the topping that we made, and just crumble that lightly over the top of the fruit. And it's as simple as that. Okay, let me just wash my hands. Preheated oven, 180 degrees. About it, but it does start to smell delicious. So generally you're like, oh, okay, I need to do something. So that takes about 20 to 25 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm just going to leave that in there for that, and we'll make some custard to go with it, because custard is another kind of delicious thing to have, especially over the coming winter. So desserts often are kind of quite cold, or we have a lot of cold desserts. Ice cream's really obviously very popular dessert, but actually over the winter and the autumn, when we get a little weather's a lot cooler, it's really nice to have something that feels warming. And the difference between having a hot dessert and a very cold, ice cream is a good example, but the difference between having ice cream and then making a warm crumble with some custard is quite huge, and that's what macrobiotics is about, is understanding the different energies and working with those and what works for you. And seasonally, as the weather cools down, we want to kind of stoke our bodies and keep them nice and warm. So a nice hearty dessert with some custard hits the spot for me anyway. So let me first talk about the syrups actually. So why use these instead of sugar? So barley malt, as it says in the name, is a derivative of barley and also rice, obviously from rice. So they're from grains. So they have a big difference in the effect on the body compared to refined sugar. They're made up of different sugars. So there's fructose, maltose, or sucrose, all of these different ones with O's on the end. And because these are grain derivative, they have a much higher proportion of maltose, which means that the whole effect on our blood sugar and the bloodstream is much milder and more gentle. And that's what we really want. We want this kind of gentle effect on the body, rather than it being a big kind of spike and in our blood sugar levels. So this is why we use these. Barley malt has some taste. So rice syrup is quite neutral, whereas barley malt has this kind of, as it's malted taste to it. So great in some recipes, but if you want a neutral taste, then you wouldn't use this. Rice syrup, so barley malt is a lot darker and the rice syrup is a lot lighter, more golden in colour. Both available mainly only in health food shops. You won't be able to buy those in a supermarket. So those are preferred. If you're cooking for people who want a slightly sweeter taste, or you're transitioning yourself and you want a slightly sweeter taste, if you've been used to eating a lot of sugar, then maple syrup can be useful as an alternative. It's much higher. You can taste it, it's much sweeter. And it's interesting, if you do get all of these, have a little taste of them just on a spoon and see the difference in the sweetness. They all have a different level of sweetness. And generally, the higher the sweetness, the more effect it's going to have on the body. So maple syrup, you probably all know, is quite sweet, but can be quite useful. It's a natural, comes from trees, less refined than lots of other ones. So people will talk to me about agave or stevia and these other sweeteners, but they're very highly processed, and I just think the less processing we have in our food, the better. So although maple syrup does have to go through a process, it's less than those. So it's my preferred next step up, and has a nice taste. So those are your options. Obviously using fruit juices, also great sweeteners, natural sweeteners. Anyone got any questions around those? Great, it must be really clear. So let's make the custard. So we're going to use some plant milk rather than dairy milk. I'm using soya today, but you can use whichever plant milk you like. They all have slightly different qualities. I find that soya milk gives a nice thickness to it. It creates a nice custard. Rice is a little thin. It's quite hard to thicken, so you can work with that, and it's naturally sweet, which is quite good, but it doesn't thicken quite so well as some of the others. So you want to heat your milk. And then we're going to add a little pinch of, well, that's optional as well. I'm going to add a little pinch of turmeric, just to give it a nice colour. But I've halved the amount as well, so I don't want too much custard tonight. But it really does need to just be a pinch. If you put too much in, your custard will go this weird kind of fluorescent yellow. It's not like a nice natural yellow. It looks like it's radioactive. So only make sure that you only put a tiny amount in to color it. If you don't want to use turmeric and you can afford it, then saffron makes a beautiful yellow color, and that has a nice taste. So those are your two options if you want to, or you can leave it white. You know, it's yellow kind of traditionally, but if you just want to kind of more white finish, I think it's absolutely fine. Also really nice to season it with some vanilla. So you can use vanilla extract. Please use extract, not essence. Extract is from the real vanilla. Essence is a chemically man-made flavoring. And with the extract as well, check which one you buy. Some of them contain sugar, so just check that. I'm going to just put a little bit into the milk to infuse it. If you want to pull all the stops out, it's really nice to use a vanilla pod. That's a lot more expensive, but occasionally, if I'm making for a more extravagant meal, then I'll use a vanilla pod. And if I'm doing that, then I'll try to make sure that I leave it to infuse, as well as taking the pulp out of the vanilla pod in the milk for a little bit before, and then you'll get a lovely flavour to the milk. Okay, so very simple to make a custard as well, really quick. These desserts don't have to be too elaborate. You know, cooking, macrobiotic cooking isn't about it being difficult or elaborate. It's about the right energy, making choices and the ingredients. So hopefully you can see that you can go home and make a quick dessert yourselves. So you need to thicken it, and we need to sweeten it. So I am going to use some rice syrup because it's nice and neutral. Sweetener, maple syrup can be a little overpowering, and barley malt is not going to be nice in it. So rice syrup is perfect for sweetening it. Rice syrup, if you cook it or boil it for a long time, will lose its sweetness. So put it in at the end. So don't put it in right now and heat it with the milk. For some reason, it loses its sweet taste, which is why I put it in at the end. What else do I need? Thickener. So what are you going to use to thicken it? There's a few options. So I've suggested using kuzu. I'll have a chat about kuzu, but you can also just use corn flour or arrowroot. The corn flour and arrowroot much cheaper. Kuzu is a little bit more expensive. So sometimes I'll use kuzu and other times I'll use corn flour, arrowroot. Be careful with arrowroot not to add too much to your custard, particularly if it might be cooling down a little. Arrowroot becomes slimy, and your custard will have this weird kind of consistency to it, which isn't also very nice. So just make sure that you don't use too much. Corn flour is pretty straightforward, but kuzu is a nice and Japanese root, which can be great to use medicinally, but also really nice for thickening things. It comes slightly differently. Will do the same thing, but it comes in clumps, so like this. But it will, as soon as you put it into some water or milk to dissolve it, as you would corn flour, it instantly dissolves. You need a little more to thicken than you would if you were using corn flour or arrowroot. I'm just using one because I've halved the recipe ingredients just in case anyone's following that. I'm using a whisk. It's nice to combine it, but with the kuzu, you need to be careful that when you add it in, if the milk is really hot and you pour it straight in, sometimes it can kind of coagulate very quickly. Not strictly, I must have that on my brain. So I like to whisk it in, and then that avoids that happening. So when I turn the heat off when I add it as well, so I've infused the milk, heated it up, and I'm going to turn the heat off, add the kuzu, and then bring it back to heat to thicken it if it hasn't thickened already. But that's why I like to use a whisk, because you reduce the risk of it lumping. That doesn't tend to happen so much with arrowroot or corn flour. And just with a spoon, work it in with the milk or water if you're using it, and those lumps will dissolve. Okay, so pour it in whilst whisking. And you might find it thickens in front of your eye a little. If not, turn the heat back up and keep stirring until it thickens. And how thick you want your custard is again up to you. I quite like mine quite runny, but if you want a really thick one, just add a little bit more thickener. So while we're whisking, I'm going to add and show you a little bit of white almond butter. And this can add a little richness to your custard. So with almond milk, there's less fat in it compared to dairy milk, so it will feel a little different. But if you want to add that richness, then using a little bit of white almond butter is really nice. So don't use the dark roasted nut butters, that's too strong. This is raw, a raw butter. Not so tasty on its own, but great to add into things. If you wanted a more cleansing diet, then probably don't use this. But if you're happy to have a little more richness, then it can be a nice addition. And you can just whisk that in, and that will mix in nicely to the custard. Okay, so then some rice syrup. And again, how much rice syrup you add is up to you, and how sweet you want your custard. If you're serving it with something incredibly sweet, you may not need much sweetener in your custard at all. So it really depends. And this, obviously, this custard, we're serving it with the crumble tonight, but you can have it with whatever you like or on its own. It's very nice just with some poached fruit. So very simple, quick dessert. Okay, and then you end up with a lovely, creamy, rich, sweet, hot liquid to pour over your dessert. If you've made that in advance, just turn the lid off, turn the heat off, put a lid on, and that will stop a skin. That's the word I was looking for. A skin forming over the top of it, and then that can be. We'll pour that one in a minute. Right, we have 6 minutes left until the crumble is ready. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I was just going to run through some other things that you can do. So with your toppings, it can be really nice to add a little bit of cinnamon in there or some spices, not chili, but other kind of spices like cinnamon or mixed spice can be nice. You can put that in. Nuts, chopped nuts. Sometimes I'll put some chopped hazelnuts or some almonds or seeds through there to give a little bit of crunch and bite. Can be really nice. So please, once you have this basic recipe, go away and have a little bit of fun with it and use what you have in your kitchen. Lots of my best things have come from, oh, I haven't got that, what can I use instead? Having fun and being creative.
Hi, Laura. I went and bought some rice syrup at the weekend. Well, I thought I bought rice syrup, but it said it's rice malt.
Yes, so that's fine.
Is that the same thing?
It is similar, yes. So yes, it basically is the same thing, but thank you for bringing that up. I'll show you. So there's 2 different varieties. This is the rice malt, which you have, Cindy, which I prefer, and is actually made in a traditional way, and is less sweet than this one, which is still, they're both rice syrups, and also this comes in glass, which, I think is infinite.
That's kind of why I went for that one. I didn't really look at it. I just saw rice sweets and just thought that's in glass. I didn't want the plastic.
Yeah, exactly. So I have both, but I generally buy this one. This one was just to demonstrate, but this one is malted, so it has an enzyme added to it to make the process work. Again, I'm not very up on that, but that's how it works and how they make it. So it's a more traditional method, and made by Clear Spring, which are a great brand. This one is, again, still great. There's nothing wrong with using it. It's made in a slightly different way, and it's much sweeter. So you can choose. Either is fine. This is, I think, preferable if you in terms of health, but both will do the same thing. So thank you for reminding me to point that.
That's good. Also, I found the other reason I bought the malt was it's slightly cheaper. It was where I was shopping anyway. I went to Green Life, so I found it slightly cheaper there.
Oh, interesting.
Than the actual syrup.
The only reason that we don't use this one sometimes is because it has the enzyme it's malted barley. So if someone is intolerant to barley or celiac or gluten intolerant, I mean, it's the enzyme from it in there, so it's a very small amount. But if someone really can't tolerate that, then you can use this, which is just purely rice. So that's also another reason for why you might.
That's good to know. All right, thank you.
That made me think of something else. No, I think that was it. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, good. Okay. I'm gonna have to.
Sorry, I have a question. Could Could you tell, please, again the ingredients? The first meal was oat, and the second one, what did you put in?
Ground almonds. And sorry, I'm just trying to find you so I can talk to you on the screen, but I can't.
I'm Jadwiga. My video is not there. Yeah, now, okay.
Yeah, so hopefully you did get sent the recipe, but where are we? So porridge oats, and then you have a choice of just using flour or a mixture of flour and ground almonds. Wholemeal flour I used, but you could use white. And then some olive oil to coat it, and then your sweetener. And I used a little pinch of baking powder just to give it a little lift. But again, you don't have to. Oh, I'll tell you what else is really nice in it. Orange zest. So if you just really finely grate some orange zest and stir that through, that can make a really nice flavour to the topping. Make it a little bit more Christmassy. So Christmas is, am I allowed to say that? I think so. Christmas is coming. You're all going to be doing it, essentially. So orange and cinnamon, and then maybe putting some dried cranberries in instead of apricots. So if you can get the cranberries that are sweetened with apple juice, they're really delicious. Put that in with you, and you've got like a little bit more of a kind of Christmassy version of the same thing.
Thank you.
Welcome. So our digestion starts with the eye, really. The stomach meridian that I think Oliver was talking to you about, meridians, starts just below the eye. So the next thing we're going to plate up in a minute. So it's really important to think about how your food looks when you serve it. Crumble's not the easiest thing to make. It looks super appealing, but it is. You can think about how you're going to serve it, what you're going to serve it in to make it look nice. So when we look at our food and it smells as well, it smells good, then it stimulates our appetite, produces saliva in our mouth. So restaurants and people that spend a lot of time making the food look nice, there's a real reason for that. It's not just to be fancy. I think it's quite important. So I don't every day make my food look amazing, but occasionally it's nice to think about how we're going to serve our food and make it look appealing. So sometimes that can be through decoration, but sometimes it can be just choosing like some nice pots. So this is like a sweet one, just to put a little bit of crumble in and pour the custard on top, and give that to someone on a plate, and they're like, ooh, and that kind of ooh is good, really. Okay, I'm just going to see if it's done. That's a timer. So it could probably do with 5 more minutes because I only put it in for 20 just because of our timings. But I can still show you. It's got this lovely golden, well, can you see that? It never really shows up on my screen very well. But really nice golden kind of, you want it kind of toasted on the top with a golden colour. So it needs to be cooked. And then the fruit underneath needs to be nice and soft and juicy. Sorry, I've lost my big spoon. So it's not like you're going to have a huge layer of topping as in a normal crumble, but you just get this lovely mixture of this sweet crumble topping and then the nice soft fruit underneath, which, yeah, I haven't had a student yet who hasn't enjoyed this dessert. So it's a real, often it used to be on a Sunday when this course is finished that would have crumble. And when I was studying, it was a everyone really enjoyed it. Maybe not in midsummer. It's not maybe the dessert for a boiling hot day. Because we have lots of those in England. Maybe, I don't know, some of you from other countries. So yeah, it definitely feels like it's a very autumnal kind of like getting cozy, snuggling up with your pudding of an evening or an afternoon. So I'm going to put a little I've not done it in this before, but I just thought, oh, it might work. I'll try a little bit in here and then a little bit of custard around there on the side and see how that works. So you can see the custard, it's nice, kind of thick consistency. It's just going to set them off really nicely. And maybe just in the bowl, you can just pour a little bit around the edge rather than on top. Oh, I know what I meant to say about the custard. I was saying about it, if it does coagulate and the kuzu forms lumps, don't panic. Just pour it through a sieve. The lumps will stay in the sieve, and then you can just put the milk back in the pan and start again and thicken it again. So it's not a problem. But the lumps aren't very nice. You don't want to keep them, but just sieve them out and start again. That's what my mum taught me, actually. So thanks, Mum. Okay. Sorry that you can't eat it or smell it, but yeah, I hope you feel inspired to go make yourself some wholesome dessert. But yeah, a little pudding pot of nice nourishing goodness without any dairy or refined sugar. So I don't know if Oliver is here, but unless if any.
Yep, I've just come back. Yep, I don't know if anybody has any final questions for you.
I was going to say one thing, Oliver, and I don't know whether that's actually I haven't okayed that, but if anyone is interested in how to make desserts without refined sugar and dairy, tomorrow between 2 and 4 I have the final class of a course that I've been running on how to make delicious desserts. And I don't see any reason if anyone wanted to join for a just for one session for a reduced price rather than the whole course. You're very welcome to contact us or contact me, and then I can set that up for you. We're making tomorrow blueberry muffins, a Bakewell tart, pecan pie, and one more that I've forgotten. Sorry, can't remember it right now, but hopefully that's enough to tempt you if you did want to. Or in the future, this is a course that I run online, teaching you how to make them with the recipes. It's a 4-week course, and we look at all sorts of different desserts. So summer desserts, more tarts, how to make pastry. Oh yes, that's what we're doing, jam tarts. So yeah, so if anyone wants to, yeah, maybe contact. I'll put my email in the contact, and you can let me know.
Okay, is that tomorrow or is it Monday?
Oh God, it's Friday. It's Monday, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oliver.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. That's on Monday, so you have plenty of time to decide. I think I must be getting ahead of myself and going, right, need to be ready. Yeah, and it's between 2 and 4. You don't have to join live. You can just watch the video if that doesn't work for you as well.
Okay, so we just need to tell them if they want to do that, how they would join. Can they?
Yes, so I'm just going to put my email in the chat. So if anyone does want to, then just email me, let me know, and I will sort that out for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Is that going in?
Nourish yourself well. There you go.
Okay, that's great.
Thanks for your watching, everyone. Go well.
All right, thank you so much, Lara. Okay, we're going to come back together as a group. And I wonder if, well, I'll just say, there's one other thing I wanted to say, which is for people that come on our open days, we offer a discount on our short courses to encourage you to come along. If you are interested in that, then please email the school info@macroschool.co.uk, and we can send you the details. I wonder if you have any questions about anything I've talked about, Lara, or about our courses coming up. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Or comments or anything, jokes? No, okay. It's good to see you, Sally Ann.
Yeah, I could say that you know, I've been making apple crumble like that since the 1980s, and more recently I found that I've said this to you, that cutting down on the grains has really improved the way I feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so using more almond flour or yes, other filling but less heavy ingredients to make desserts, but also for main courses as well. I mean, you did encourage me to eat 20% cereals because they're grounding. But I do find, you know, if I can minimize the grains, I just feel a lot better.
Okay. Well, I think just talking about crumbles and pastries and things, I think using flour can be quite heavy. And using things like almond flour, it definitely creates a lighter kind of pastry or a lighter crumble. If you're happy, you know, if you find it suits you eating less grain, then that's fine. You know, some people find they want to eat more. It's more filling. But if you find that you're satisfied with your food and you feel that you've eaten enough, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah. This is the kind of experimenting that I talked about at the beginning. And there's no one size fits all. Some people may be happy eating 40 or even 50% grains, especially people are doing a lot of physical work where we need more energy. And
well, I've done that all my life, and I realize it was too much.
It can be. We can overdo anything, and this is the thing about the Oriental idea of balance. In the West, we tend to think of good foods and bad foods, and if a food is good, then the more you eat, the better. So, you know, so fruits are good food, therefore eating a lot of fruit is going to make you better. But actually, it's a matter of balance, because fruit is soft, watery, has a cooling effect, and generally eating a little fruit is fine. But if people have a more depleted, cold condition, they feel cold in the winter, eating a lot of fruit, especially tropical fruits, is too much. So it's all a matter of balance, rather than things being good or bad. So yeah, you have to find out what level of grains in general are healthy, nutritious food, but everybody has to find out, well, how much suits them, and also different kinds of grains as well. Sometimes rice, barley, millet, quinoa, buckwheat, people find different grains suit them better. Yeah, thank you, Sally Ann.
Thank you.
Yes, Shakti, just have to unmute.
Okay. I'm just curious again to know if cravings have anything to do with, or how do you work the intuitive cravings into the cooking, or, you know, this is still all new to me, so I didn't know the language yet.
Yeah, it's a very good question, because we all get cravings at time.
Yeah.
And it's difficult. I think there's two main reasons for getting cravings. One could be that our body genuinely needs a certain food or a certain quality. You know, so if we eat something salty, then we crave, you know, a drink or, you know, or more liquid. You know, it's very natural. If we eat a very heavy food, we then want a very light food. If we eat something strongly savory. We may feel very attracted to something sweet afterwards. So it's important to listen to our cravings. On the other hand, sometimes we eat for emotional reasons, or for comfort. When we're feeling undernourished or emotional, we may reach for certain foods. So some foods, and they may be actually making our health worse. So it's difficult because we have to decide which of those it is.
Right. So it could have,
and I think we can decide in a few ways. One thing is we might just eat the food and then see how we feel. If we feel better, then maybe it was what our body needed. But if we feel worse, spaced out, abdominal pain, bloating, maybe it wasn't so good for us. Also, I think if we have a craving that maybe we don't go for it, but it just keeps going, over several days, there's something there's probably something there that we need.
Well, what's interesting for me is that throughout the month, and on subsequent months, I find that during the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter of the month, I have the same cravings. And I'm wondering what that is all about as well.
Well, because your body is changing over the cycle. Towards the end of the cycle, the week before a period, what the body is doing is really concentrating a lot of blood and tissue and energy in the womb in case there's a fertilized egg, to become implanted. So there's this real concentration of energy going on, which in macrobiotics we call more yang. If one gets overly yang, then one tends to crave yin foods. So during that time, women very often crave, chocolate, tropical fruits, sweet foods, and things like that.
I crave more like pickles or radishes.
Okay. Well, that's very.
But that's my liver, isn't it?
So also that's a kind of healthier, but still a food that it feels light and opening and can relieve tension. So that's very natural. So
interesting, yeah.
It's good to follow that. Yeah. Also, generally in that last week before the period, to eat lighter foods. Don't eat really heavy, long cooked, too much animal food. Because that could already, you've got this yang process going on, and if you eat heavy food, then it could just make that worse.
I don't know if that was the apex of my my craving necessarily, or if that's the compass of what it feels like it's something else. It feels like there's something else going on in my body besides that.
Yeah, and this is why we've really got to listen to our bodies as well as learning with our heads, about balance and what's good for us. We really need to listen to our bodies. Yeah, really important. If people are kind of following a diet too strictly with their head, then sometimes they go way off what the body actually needs. In long term, that can create imbalances and poor health.
Right. Okay, great. It's the awareness, I think, that we need to have.
Yes, exactly. Yes, we need to develop self-awareness around how foods and other things in our life are affecting us.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Very good. I think in that circle of in that triangle of three things there, I need to put awareness in the middle. Because that's an essential ingredient.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shakti. Okay. Any other comments, or shall we finish there for tonight? Okay, so maybe we'll finish there. I really encourage you to check out the wellbeing community. It's going to be giving good information, just like we've been doing tonight. Cooking talks, answering questions. So I really encourage you to join that. We're going to make a small fee on a sliding scale to make it hopefully available for everybody, for just to recompense us a bit for putting the work in. But it's quite low cost, just so that you can come and join in and get some more good information and ask questions and so on. So there'll be some information going out in about a week, 10 days time on that, and also it'll be on our website. Okay. All right, to finish then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming along. Great to meet you all. Nice to see some familiar faces, and also nice to meet some new faces as well. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
okay, good to see you.
Thank you, Oliver.
All right. All right. Thank you for your questions, Claire. Nice to see you again, Jadwiga. Hope
Nice to see you too. Thank you.
maybe see you another time. Yeah.
Yeah.